I see a lot of organizations teaming up and really working together to get past this. How can we get involved? How do we help the medical field and our own associates? People ask, well, who shined? Well, the whole team shined. There wasn't one person that stood out more than the other. We're all in it together and trying to help each other out.
Welcome to Beyond Bosch. I'm Jessica Dell, and today we have Russell Keiger from our Anderson plant. Russ will share with us how a team came together to quickly make hand sanitizer for our U.S. Bosch locations during this global health crisis. This saves commercially available sanitizers for use by medical professionals and the public. Hello, Russ. What is your role at Bosch?
Currently, my role is the operation piece of health, safety, and environment. It's a new organization as of going on actually 2 full years now. So it's from the associates' health and well-being, from hygiene studies and making sure that the chemicals that we're using in the facility, all the way to how those chemicals not only impact the associates, but how they impact the environment, and then everything in between. So the safety of our associates, the guarding of our equipment, how safe that is. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a lot of people don't realize how important that is and how impactful that can be.
Yeah. So it's very important. It's becoming more important as we get through this, as we've seen major part of our roles, and most of my organization right now are tied up with this COVID-19 that we're hoping to get past soon. But a lot of people are seeing what the impacts of this can be to our organization. So.
And speaking of, this kind of flows right into what we wanted to talk to you about today. Is you and some team members had an idea. You guys are now producing hand sanitizer in our Anderson plant. So how did this come about? How did the idea come to be?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I think it came from a variety of directions. A bunch of the Bosch associates from different directions kind of was looking for how do we help? How can we get involved? How do we help the medical field and our own associates to prevent the spread? So in the very beginning, I think the Central Crisis Management team that Jerry Smith is a part of, it was an idea out of there that came from another region. So from there, another associate, Talca Smith from Sunnyvale, got word from one of his colleagues from another region to say, hey, this is something that we can do across different regions. So Jerry got in touch with me, asked me to help Mr. Smith out to see if we could look at the federal and state regulations and see how we could get this kicked off. So we quickly looked across the U.S. and said, okay, where can we do this, and what state would kind of open their arms to us and help us out there? So we notified the state of South Carolina, worked with the labor board and the licensing board there, and said, hey, this is what we want to do. This is, are you okay with this? And within a couple of hours got back to us, so they were well on board and willing to support us in creating this in South Carolina and helping meet the demand within the U.S. for sanitizers. So it kind of started off as a kind of support role, and then ended up in kind of a lead role in trying to get this implemented fairly quickly in the South Carolina area. So then reached out to a couple of the site leads and reached out to Anderson site lead, Christian Colson, and he was very ecstatic about the potential of this coming and Anderson helping out. So that's how it began.
Wow. You said you got a response and support within a few hours, and if you guys were able to get up and running in 3 days, is that true?
Yeah. So once we got state approval, we were working already because of the FDA, trying to work with them and see what they want. And they actually got back to us even quicker and started working from that standpoint, worked with legal on certain topics of it just to make sure we weren't missing anything. So Steve Borgsdorf was very instrumental in making sure that we didn't miss anything from a regulatory standpoint. So spent many hours on the phone with Steve working through the process and making sure we covered all our bases from the regulatory. And then Anderson had some inventory along with some of their suppliers. We called up one of the suppliers, said, hey, can you get us alcohol? And they said, yep, we can have it to you today.
Wow.
Fairly well. And very good team effort across the board. Everybody was excited. When I would talk to them, they were excited, willing to help and pitch in to make things help even quicker. And the Anderson team and the Rexroth team pulled together and all met in Anderson and started creating sanitizers based on the requirements from the FDA with the World Health Organization requirements for making this. There was 2 recipes that we could make, and we were able to take one of those recipes and start making it and make our first shipment that week.
Okay, so I'm trying to envision this. You're in a plant setting. Can you help me maybe paint a visual picture of what this looks like? Because I'm picturing like a plant, but then at the same time, a science lab or a kitchen, because it's crazy to me to think about, you got these recipe options and then you guys were able to turn, you weren't making hand sanitizer before, and then within 3 days you're producing quite a bit, right?
Yeah. So actually it started even before, getting into, let's call it the kitchen, but the lab. But Anderson already mixes a lot of chemicals for their paste manufacturing and for the electronic components that they make. So it kind of was a win-win. It kind of fell into a similar process, and they already had the lab. So what I did is I reached out to a couple of team members, because I've worked in Anderson for many years and know a lot of them. So I reached out to some team members, and one of those also worked in the lab. So reached out to a couple of the lab workers, associates, and said, hey, can we start trying this out? Can we use the lab? So we actually started out in a smaller lab just to do the prototypes in the first couple of gallons, just to make sure that we were able to mix it properly and it met the requirements and all of that. And then we moved to one of the larger labs there that we could kind of set up I call it assembly line, but it's far from being what we call an assembly line in the automotive industry. But kind of same similar process, passing it down, putting the individual ingredients in, making sure it's at the right level, passing it around, measuring and make sure the quality's there and it's meeting the right quantity of alcohol. Then labeling it, packaging it, and that's really how it turned out. But a lot of effort went into it. So our Fountain Inn facility was able to make all of our labels to meet the requirements for shipping and to be able to label it. So while we were working on the process, Fountain Inn was creating the labels, working with our corporate group out of Jill Kupchak's group. Ryan Young helped with the regulations around how we ship it and what needed to be on the bottles and what needed to be on the packaging, and worked directly with Fountain Inn so they could print the labels out while we were in the lab with the Anderson and Rexroth associates making it. So.
Wow. I love that. I love the team effort.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't have been done that quick without it. And everybody we asked to be a part of the team that had some expertise in either the labs, from Michael Burke to Tommy Williams to V.V. Massey. Brad Hughes was part of the team, and then instrumental from the lead part of it was Michael Rowland, and then Trent Center, which is a part of Rexroth. So all pulled together, all had different tasks, knocking them out, along with Brian Young and Steve Borgsdorf. And all of us was able to pull together quickly and do certain parts of it to make it happen. So I know people ask, well, who shined? Well, the whole team shined. There wasn't one person that stood out more than the other. It was literally everybody was just 100% bought into, hey, this is impacting us, let's do it.
That's awesome. So how much are you able to produce?
Well, right now we're limited based on the alcohol. So the more alcohol we get, the more we can produce. So anywhere right now, the alcohol that we can get is between 80 to 100 gallons of sanitizers, which right now is keeping us in check from a Bosch standpoint. Our goal, based on the FDA requirements on what we could or could not do during the exception and during the state of emergency, we are able to supply just Bosch, internal to Bosch. So so far, we've been able to keep that supply chain going without any major interruptions. So that helps us not take from the commercial aspect of it. So the people in the health and medical field can get what they need. We kind of, what I look at it is, holding our own, making what we need internally as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's great. So how many sites will benefit from this effort?
Our last shipments, we shipped to 41 sites.
Wow.
And that's just in the U.S. Yeah, so small sites, larger sites. So we were able to ship. And when I say ship, that's where the end result. Some of them we shipped larger quantities to different regions, and they were able to distribute within their regions, just try to save on shipping costs and stuff like that, and also still meet some of the regulations. We had some quantity things that we had to do to meet regulations and stuff like that. So that helped out. And those plants were like, yes, we'll be happy to distribute. They're only 5 minutes down the road or 15 minutes down the road. So that helped out.
Well, has there been any interest from those other sites or other companies even to try to duplicate this?
Yeah, so we've been receiving calls. I guess the good thing about social media is the quick spread of the word. So between LinkedIn and a couple of the other avenues of information, we've been receiving a lot of calls. So don't think we need any more in the U.S. What we need more in the U.S. is the supplies of alcohol and on. I think we could provide that. But then other countries are reaching out to us. India, they want to start creating their own. So we've been trying to work with them to make them successful too, and learn, right? Share it.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest benefit of this is we're all in it together and trying to help each other out. And whether it's a different company or whether it's our same company in a different country, it benefits us all.
I'm almost getting emotional because it's just so impactful. It seems like, sometimes we can take that for granted, but really, if you think about the impact this is having, just you sharing those few people these are large corporations, and, Bosch itself is huge to supply such a high need right now, something in such high demand. That's really powerful.
No, I agree with you. I think this is, impact us all, right? We all have an interest in this, and it's going to impact every one of us at some extent. So I think it's good. I think it pulls us all together too, and it might even be paving the road for the future on how quickly we move on other things in the future. It kind of paves that road for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How does it make you feel being such an integral part of this?
It's got to make you feel good, right? It's good to be able to produce something that everybody needs and actually help out from that standpoint. But again, it wasn't just me. It's a team effort, and that team is just unbelievable. Just to see the input and the amount of energy going into this. So we thought we would have to produce it over several days, and this group just are able to mostly make the product and ship in one day that's needed across the organization. So, and to be able to fluctuate that based on plants shutting down, who doesn't need it, who needs it, and be able to organize that across the board is just unbelievable. So it just goes to show you what kinds of associates we have at Bosch and what's important to them.
So what motivation or advice would you give to other companies or individuals that want to get involved or to get thinking outside the box and maybe with some stuff that they already have on hand? Do you have any advice?